Hai mă cunoașteți?
Da.
Luați loc, vă rog. Ce mai faceți?
Dr. Karastigian insisted that Paraschiv was mentally ill, but admitted that the hospital had been used by the regime to isolate troublemakers.
Securitatea a dus uneori bolnavi în anumite împrejurări, evenimente, bolnavi care s-au internat la noi.
Mi s-a părut lucru normal asta?
Bolnavi care conturbau liniștea sau ordinea sau deranjau într-un fel sistemul, aduceau, dar care erau bolnavi, nu oameni care nu oameni sănătoși. Oameni sănătoși nu.
Paraschiv's original admission file stated that he suffered from paranoia. The symptoms included publicizing a series of irresponsible complaints against the authorities, at home and abroad. Paraschiv says his dignity was destroyed in the hospitals.
Și aș fi preferat să fiu judecat de un tribunal.
I would rather have been tried in court and sentenced to years in prison than have my dignity destroyed.
Pentru că scopul securității tocmai
Of course, that was the intention of the Securitate. They wanted to convince my workmates that I was not sane and that they should ignore ideas about free trade unions and democratic rights.
If anyone was suffering from paranoia, it was Ceausescu. Not just about opposition at home, but also about traveling abroad, as his foreign minister, Stefan Andrei, recalls.
El, în general, peste o taie nu mâncă la mese la oaspeți.
As a rule, he didn't eat at official dinners on foreign trips.
Ci îi pregătea bucătarul la reședință.
He had his meals at the embassy, prepared by his own cook.
Cu el un inginer chimist.
He was accompanied by a chemist who was in charge, among other things, of destroying his excrement so that nobody could examine it, to check the state of his health.
Lui să fie amestecate în așa fel încât să nu se vadă ce boală are.
Colonel Dmitry Berlan at the Securitate was Ceausescu's chief bodyguard.
În vizitele respective dădea mâna cu cineva.
If during a visit he'd shake hands with a foreigner, particularly if he was from the third world, there was always in his entourage either an officer or somebody from the Food Safety Agency who had a medical kit containing tissues dipped in alcohol.
O trusă medicală, exista șervețele îmbibate.
And he'd be given one of them to wipe his hands.
Și se ștergea pe ele.
Ceausescu's suspicion of foreigners meant that the Securitate had to take a close look at anyone who travelled abroad. As senior party member Joe Pop discovered after he returned from an official trip to New York.
În aprilie 65, când am venit în țară,
when we returned to Romania, the Securitate suspected that we'd been recruited as American spies.
eu personal venind așa am fost suspendat.
Even though I was a director working for the Department of International Relations, I was suspended and forbidden to go abroad.
Am fost suspendat și mi s-a interzis să mai plec în străinătate.
But Joe was cleared, his career prospered, and he and Nadia were able to enjoy the slight increase in living standards of the late 60s and early 70s.
We'd bought a Yugoslav car, a Sastava. Look.
Here is our little girl again, and our glorious Zastava.
It was good.
Now the Pops could easily get to Nadia's parents in the town of Târgoviște and escape from the ever-present surveillance in Bucharest.
Family was where we felt safe. A place one could take refuge in without fear of being listened to or sneaked on.
Neighbours were nosy sometimes.
But Joe was even watched at his in-laws. It turned out that the local Securitate boss knew his mother-in-law.
Și
He told her, if you're under the impression that we don't know what your son-in-law does while he's in Târgoviște, think again. Lucky for him, he's okay. We can't hold anything against him, but we know everything. So they kept me under surveillance all the time.
Well, actually, the Pops did find some escape from being watched at the seaside.
It wasn't crowded.
It's one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to. We had so much freedom for the children. It wasn't luxury as in other places, but it was very pleasant.
Perhaps the most unexpected targets of the Securitate were the Ceausescu children, all the more so when we consider who authorized the surveillance.
Au fost în mare măsură puși de mama mea să ne supravegheze pe noi toți copiii.
My mother asked the Securitate to keep an eye on us.
Dragoste, se poate spune oricum exagerat.
This might have been from a misguided sense of love, but whatever it was excessive.
Nu putem să facă nimic.
The Securitate couldn't touch us, but the information they gave our mother created a lot of problems for us.
Am avut destule neînțelegeri.
La un moment dat primesc telefon prin stație să mă întrebe unde se găsește.
One day I received a call asking where's Zoya Ceausescu.
Atunci am primit telefonul de la dispecerat.
I reported and then got another call saying that I was to go and fetch Comrade Elena.
Dumnezeu a venit, s-a urcat în mașină și am...
I went to the residence. She got into the car and we went to the Harestro Park in order for her to see what Zoya was doing in the park with her boyfriend.
Cu Petre Roman, cu Petrica. A văzut...
She saw from the car that they were walking, holding hands, or the boyfriend would have his arm around her waist or around her shoulders.
De mijloc sau de după...
We stayed for about 15 minutes.
Am stat circa vreo 10-15 minute.
Elena was to force Zoya to end two of her relationships. The Securitate kept close tabs on son Nicu as well. Elena and Nicolae did not approve of the hedonistic lifestyle Nicu enjoyed with his sweetheart, Donca Mizil. In their determination to stop them marrying, Nicolae even broke his own law.
He ended Nicu's long relationship with Donca Mizil. He went so far as to force her to have an abortion. He took the child out of her without her parents' approval and without her approval. It was illegal, of course.
Nicolae and Elena wanted Nicu to go into politics and lined up a budding youth leader for him, Poliana Cristescu. Nicu married her very reluctantly.
După ce a semnat Nicu certificatul de căsătorie,
After he signed the marriage certificate, Nicu said to Poliana, "Now go and live with my mother."
ce acum stai cu mama,
She should shag you because she chose you.
că ea te-a ales.
Few ordinary people could escape the endless surveillance and interference. But Daniela Dragic did manage to create something like an alternative life. After she and her husband were sacked for refusing to translate some government propaganda, she set up a kindergarten.
I had this private English teaching kindergarten in my own apartment. I could make a living. I could do what I wanted. I spoke English with the kids. I lived in a different world. I created a world that was different.
Daniela even organized a birthday party for one of the kindergarten children in the spacious house of a foreign diplomat. She was breaking all the rules. For Romanians, contact with foreign embassy staff or going to their homes was strictly forbidden.
Most people, let's say, survived communism by listening to Radio Free Europe, by having an underground abortion provision network, We would sit together in the kitchen most often, drinking beer, eating sunflower seeds,